We're live. All right. So, this meditation talk is like a few of my best meditation talks ever. Comes from, I had no idea what I was talking about this morning, and then I asked Meryl, what should I talk about? And Meryl went off on a whole bunch of stuff. She mentioned a couple of things, and I want to bring it up, but this is great because it is a very human, very common experience that so many people go through all the time. And the title of this talk is Tiny Triggers. That was her phrase, not mine, because I know that in the moment, the trigger could seem like the biggest, most life-ending thing, even though with a little bit of context or a little bit of space and perspective, you might look back on it and think, that was ridiculous, I can't believe that I was so upset about that. Let me just allow me to go on a 30-second rant here, and I don't actually have a personal problem with the word trigger, but it just makes me think. I understand that it serves an important purpose, and in the way that we use it in our culture these days, it definitely means something that is important. And I have an issue with the idea that anybody else can trigger me. Like, I want to be the one who's in charge of whether I get triggered or not. So this is very much at the core of our philosophy and the idea of meditation and all this kind of self-work and introspection is like, well, now I know what pisses me off, and then I get to choose if I get pissed off or not. And it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes you get pissed whether you want to be or not. The ultimate is when you can choose to be pissed off when it's not a natural thing, or you can choose to look or seem upset and be able to use that, but it's not something that is easily accomplished. In any case, we're going to talk about this rant. So, there are just so many great things that I heard this morning that I wanted to kind of feed into this and talk about. So the first thing that I heard was, it's like I'm at war with myself. And the first thing that I heard that I thought was this thing that my Sifu always says, the battle is within, and it is so true. It's funny because if you look inside the dojo from the outside and you've never taken class before, it should look like there's just pure violence going on in here. People are punching and kicking each other. They're learning how to choke and break each other's arms. And there's a Tai Chi class, and then they start breaking each other again. And it's like there is so much there's so much going on externally that seems to be violence, war, battle, that it gets very tempting and easy to see what we do as an external battle, but truly the battle is within. I watched this movie that I thought was pretty decent called Hustle. It was Adam Sandler's recent movie that's on Netflix, and he keeps saying to this player that he's coaching, he's like, it's you against you out there. It's a very talented player that he's coaching, and all of his hang-ups and the reason that he's not able to get to the next level is because he's in his own way. And this is truly the way that it is with us in our practice, past a certain level at least, because you can learn the physical technique, but you're not going to be able to use it when the pressure is on or in the moment when it counts if you are in your own way. If you're thinking about it, if you're second-guessing yourself, and you notice how the 5 ways of becoming great at martial arts: patience, perseverance, practice hard, practice exactly what you want to perform, and meditate. These are not like the 5 ways of getting great at martial arts are not punch harder, get stronger, be angrier. It's all like about doing the internal work and having that discipline and control, and to be able to keep going and persevering through the difficulties. So the battle is within, And if you feel like you're at war with yourself, that's just you being aware of what's actually happening here. You are against yourself, and you are your own worst enemy. And you can be in charge of what triggers and what doesn't. And part of that is recognizing, like, when I am in a mood. And sometimes I gotta recognize, no matter what anybody says to me right now, or no matter what happens, it's gonna piss me off. So maybe I need to go spend some time with myself, or work out a way so that I can be with the world. And that might take a while. So the next thing I heard was, I'm obsessed with details and attached to things working out the way that I want. And I'm paraphrasing here. But this morning, it was the radio. The radio didn't work, and it ruined my whole day. Now, this has happened to all of us. It's a tiny thing. It's a tiny little trigger. But depending on the kind of mood that you were in before, or what was going on, emotionally or whatever beforehand, that little thing could be all that it takes. And some days, you're in a great mood. Some days you wake up and you're feeling amazing, and then there's that one little thing that happens that for whatever reason, it always gets you. And I will say that, and part of this is what she got into this morning about, like, I know that I'm supposed to be like this, but it doesn't always work. The root of all of our suffering and unhappiness and everything, on some level, is so ridiculously simple, yet so pervasive and difficult to deal with. It is simply, if you don't get what you want, or things don't go the way that you expect or want them to go, it makes us upset. And it might make us a little bit upset, it might make us a lot upset. But basically, when we are attached to things going a certain way, and it doesn't happen, we flip out. And if you expect that not to happen, you're kidding yourself. You've got to recognize it. And then, one of the nice things about knowing this is, as soon as you recognize, if you catch it early enough, you recognize yourself getting pissed off, you can then ask yourself, wait a minute, why is this happening? Well, it's happening because of that thing that I didn't expect to happen, or didn't want to happen. It happened. And there is something that I was just about to say and I forgot. I'm going to continue on here. But she brought up the idea that in Buddhism, this is one of the core ideas, the core principles, is all of life is suffering, and existence is suffering. If you are alive, if you are a human person, you are going to suffer, and that's just the way that it goes. And she's like, but do I really have to suffer every single moment? Does it have to be first the radio, and then this, and then that, and then that? And the answer is no, you don't have to. And there will always be. Life is a never-ending parade, a non-stop parade of things that could make you suffer. There will never be a point while you are alive that you won't have something happen that could annoy you, make you angry, make you sad, be something that you were attached to not happening, and then it happens. There is always that opportunity. So, until you die. So then when you die, you're great, you don't have to worry about it anymore. But until then, when you're in the body, you're an alive human being, that is the way that it goes. There's a distinction between having the opportunity to be attached to something and suffering because it doesn't happen, and actually taking that opportunity, because you can always take the opportunity to do the other. And there's a big, very clear difference between having the opportunity to rise above it and not, let your attachment bring you into that crappy state of mind. There's a big difference between taking the opportunity to rise above, or recognizing the opportunity and actually taking it. Because sometimes you feel justified. In fact, most of the time, the more angry you are, the more justified you feel in being angry. And the more it seems like, I should be angry right now, or I should be sad, or I should be however I am. And it's not necessarily wrong, in that our emotions serve a purpose, right? Our emotions serve the purpose of pointing out something to us. And I tell this story every once in a while. I was a small baby child. I was like in 5th grade, maybe 6th grade, and there are 2 stories that I can tell right now that happened at the same time. I'll tell the one that I don't tell us off. I spent a lot of time on my hair this morning before I went to school. This is why I just stick my hair in a bun now, because I like not having to think about it at all for the rest of the day. But this day, I'm a young child. This is one of the first times that I really spent a lot of time on my hair. I had it gelled back, and I was looking slick, and I show up to school, and before we even go into the classroom, one of the other kids, his name is Brett, I can't remember his last name, but the definition of a jerk in middle school. This kid was always on my case, and he sees me, and he can tell that deep down in my soul, I really cared about the way that my hair looked, and so he messed up my hair. And I'm telling you, it, to me, felt like somebody had, like, shot my mom. I don't get angry. Even when I was a child, I didn't get angry, but I got angry, and I chased him around the entire perimeter of the school like 3 times until I got tired of it, and I just fell down on the ground. And we got taken to the principal's office and explained what happened, and I'm sure neither one of us got reprimanded because it was such a stupid incident. But this anger that I felt was pointing me towards, like, your hair's messed up, and you got kind of made a fool of in front of people. Now, the way that I dealt with it in that moment did not help my hair, nor did it help with the fact that I looked like a fool, because I looked like even more of a fool chasing this guy around. He was significantly faster than me. I had no chance of catching him. And you get the distinction here between our emotion points us at something that needs our attention, and then the way that we actually deal with it. How, when we pay attention to this thing, do we respond? Usually we don't think about it. We just fly off the handle, and whatever happens, happens. This brings me down to one of the last things that I wanted to talk about, and then I'll come back. But there are only 2 ways of dealing with these emotions, and there are actually 3 ways. There are 2 ways that I talk about dealing with them, because I like to pretend that the 3rd way is not an option. But the first way is you deal with what needs your attention. You know, your radio's broke, so you get it fixed. Or at the very least, let's say I'm late to work, damn it. And I know that, and one of the things that she said this morning was, like, my radio, is it music or a podcast are you listening to? Music. Music is my mental health. And I get that, because when I listen to music, which doesn't happen that often, but when I do, I love it. It makes me feel amazing. And good music can totally transport you. And if you are expecting that and you don't get it, it's like hellfire. But besides flying off the handle, what you could do is drive to the shop, get it fixed, or in the moment, I don't have time to drive it to the shop. I'm late for work. You take out your phone and you write down a reminder for yourself. Take the car in to get the radio fixed. Something that in the moment you can point to and say, all right, I dealt with this thing, and now I get to set it aside. It's not always going to work, but it is a possibility that it could work. So the other thing to deal with, the other way to deal with it, is just to let go of the emotion, right? So the radio's broke, you feel the fire, and then you have your second thought. So your first thought is, I'm pissed. The world deserves my wrath. The second thought is, wait, but is that true? But is this actually the way that I have to feel right now? Where is this coming from? Is the radio in charge of me, or am I in charge of me? And then I can choose to let it go. And sometimes, and this is what works most often for me, and I know that we're not all logic bots like Sifu is, but if you can logic your way out of it, and you can say to yourself, well, I know that I'm pissed because of this thing, and I can choose to not have this piss me off. You can let go of the emotion. Those are the two ways that I like to recommend dealing with the emotion. The third way is the one that everybody does, which is to just ignore the thing that needs your attention and pretend that you have no power over your emotion, and just let your emotion take over and just like go off. And it's like hours later and you're still pissed off. You don't remember why you're pissed off, but you know that you deserve to be pissed off. And you've spiraled, right? So then you start to spiral, and now I'm not thinking about the radio at all. I'm thinking about, my career or my relationships or whatever that is going wrong in life, and I'm coming up with stuff that's not even wrong yet, but it could go wrong, and I'm spiraling into that. And it's like such an utterly ridiculous yet utterly human experience that we have, and we all have this. We all have ups and downs, and it can be where we are with our day. Maybe something else has set us up to just really be looking for a fight. It might be chemical hormones, as you mentioned. It might be whatever it is, right? And there are plenty of reasons that could trigger us, and plenty of reasons that we could enter into a situation and be ready for it. And one of the things to keep in mind is this too shall pass. If we are way down here and just ready to go into any kind of fight, know that this will pass. And then someday you'll be up here and know that this will pass. And this is just the way that it goes, right? Life is an exciting roller coaster. Enjoy the ride. And if you can separate yourself from it and enjoy it and laugh at yourself, this is one of the most important tools for dealing with anger, is laughing at yourself. Because somebody else is going to laugh at us. It may as well be us laughing at ourselves and enjoying it, right? There's somebody out there being entertained by this. We can be the ones who are entertained by the ups and the downs. Trying to go back to something else. Well, I'll go to this quote. This is something, I can't remember if I quoted it last night or one of the recent nights, but this is the idea of the little things and the big things. This is a quote from Hagakure. Matters of great concern should be treated lightly, and matters of small concern should be treated seriously. Now, you might hear this and think, see, I was right to be pissed off about the radio. It's a small thing, and I should be angry about it. When I hear this, and there are as many interpretations of this as there are people in the world, but when I hear this, I think something that seems to me in the moment to be so serious and so upsetting is the thing to be treated lightly. And then the things that are trivial, not the radio that is trivial but it pissed me off, but the thing that is like, I normally just walk right by this beautiful painting and never look at it. These trivial things, we want to treat it with great concern and really allow ourselves to be absorbed in the moment by something that is not going to piss us off, and something that will be a really nice moment for us to stretch. And this is one way to look at this whole concept, is if something is making me feel like a real kind of way, if it's making me feel like going to war, feel the fire, I recognize that this is something that I can treat very lightly. And if it's something that I am not paying any attention to at all, I can treat that with great concern and be very serious about it. That other part of it is like at the crux of our practice, right? Many people think that punching like this is not a problem. And it will not be a problem until it is, because you miss and you break your thumb, right? What's one finger? I'm doing all this stuff. I'm shifting my weight, I'm turning my hips, I'm hitting with the correct part of my hand, I'm doing all of this. I even got my other hand up. It took me 5 years to put this other hand up, but I'm finally doing it. But what is this? This is the one thing that could ruin all of us, right? This little thing. So in our physical practice, we pore over the tiny details, because that's the difference between the technique working and not. It's the difference between us hurting ourselves and not. And it is, perhaps most importantly, the invitation into the moment, into this present. Meditation is paying attention to the thing that is on some level so trivial. It's what happens all day long. You're breathing all day. We know this because you're still alive. And it is so easy to ignore your breath. In fact, your brain has no interest in it at all, which is why meditation is so hard. But we sit and we breathe and we focus on it, and the mind wanders and we come back to the breathing. And what we're training ourselves to do by immediately coming back to the breath when the mind wanders is we're training ourselves to recognize this attachment to this thought. We're recognizing this thing that comes in to try to, take us out of the present and take us on some kind of a ride. And we nip it in the bud right away. We recognize what it is immediately, as soon as possible, and then we let it go. We're practicing moment by moment, recognizing the attachment and letting it go. Recognizing it and letting it go. And this is without further attachment to how come I'm not able to meditate right now, attachment to making your meditation good so that you get angry when the meditation is no good. It's just you recognizing you let it go. Now, we can't just let go of everything. You gotta make money and buy food and eat it and breathe and not get hit by a car. There are things that we must do to survive, so we can't just let go of everything at every moment. But our brains are designed to constantly be in that kind of state of anxiety, looking for things to be upset about, looking for things to stress about, and always in that logical, methodological, it's not a word, methodical state. What's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? And we got to give ourselves a break. That's what meditation is. That's what practice is. It is the opportunity to just be in the present and take a break from that normal frantic state of our mind. And when you are spiraling, you are angry, and you are attached to your anger, or whatever kind of mental state you're in, that is when it is the hardest to let go of it and come back to the present moment. So ideally, we catch it as early as possible. And you think of, imagine this, I use it all the time when we talk about this idea, where you are standing on a hill, and there's a boulder at the top of the hill. It's a big boulder. It's big enough to squash you. And you have to be somewhere on the hill. You can't be on the other side of the boulder, and you can't sidestep or pivot out of the way of the boulder. You've got to stop it. Where do you want to be along this hill in order to stop it? And it's not like, oh, the hill slopes and then I can be over here and stand where after it slows down. When you're on the hill where the boulder will only pick up speed and momentum and squashing power. So you have to be somewhere. You know the place to be is right up against the boulder. And if you can catch it before it even starts rolling, before it gets any momentum at all, then it's very easy to stop it. So meditation is basically training us to recognize it and put our hand right on the boulder and to be able to catch it before it rolls us over. And just because you have your hand on the boulder does not mean you are unaware of whatever that little trigger is on the other side that's trying to push the boulder. I still know what's going on, and I'm still able to pay attention to it and deal with it if it's necessary, or I'm still able to let it go and realize that this does not actually need my attention at all. Now, that is all easier said than done. You might have the thought, and this is something that I recommend, but also it will be very difficult is you are in it. You are in that spiral. You're in that really powerful emotional state, and you decide, I'm going to do what Sifu said, and I'm going to meditate. You're going to sit, and you're going to be in that storm of emotion until you can let it go, and it might take some time. So meditating in the thick of it is sometimes going to be the best answer. Better than that would be meditate beforehand and practice so that you are ready to put your hand on the boulder. It's like planning for a fire before your house burns down, before planning for the fire when it's already burning. If it's like, I should really go buy a fire extinguisher, the kitchen is already half in flames, like it's too late at that point. So, and this, if I take it back to our physical practice and use that analogy, it's the same idea, right? You don't want to wait until somebody's swinging at you to start thinking about, what should I do if somebody's punching in my face? Like, you got to practice so much that it becomes second nature. And it's a little bit easier to get that on a physical level, especially if you have experienced it. That practice ducking thousands of times so that when somebody throws a punch, you do it automatically. We want to practice the same thing internally. We practice going back to the breath. We practice letting go of thoughts. We practice recognizing what is really at play here and able to decide and then respond well to it. So that's what we will do today. I'm sure that this conversation has caused some little triggers to come up for you in your mind. You can think about the last thing that really pissed you off for a great reason and for not a great reason. This meditation is not the time for you to sit and think about that stuff. It is the time for you to let it go. And if something shows up in your mind, you recognize that as an opportunity to practice letting go. And just continue coming back to the breath as many times as you can over the next 15 minutes or so. Sit.